without the right story, there is no value.
It's full of so many different things.
For lighting, this is, I think, my favorite shot.
Is that there's a large component of modular and electronic components to make this world work.
Oh boy, we really are that nervous. My name is Chris Lavis, and I am one of the co-directors of The Girl Who Cried Pearls.
I'm the second co-director, and my name is Maciek Szczerbowski.
My name is Brigitte Henry, and I'm the art director.
I'm Patrick Watson. I am the intimacy coordinator for this film.
Something tells me you're
all
not
the
qualified
sex
for
scenes.
that.
I was like, oh.
Yeah,
I had to talk to the puppets before, make sure it was gonna be okay.
you know what? That's how it's gonna start, and that's gonna be. They're gonna have a little bit of credits, and then that, and then a little bit of credits.
So before you even started planning The Girl Who Cried Pearls, did you each have a different vision for a film? Like, how did you kind of align at the very beginning?
Well, usually our direction comes from as a consequence of debate. There's not such a thing as two individual visions that we then merge. It develops during talking about it. We figure it out by conversation. We meet and start throwing around ideas, and we have a pretty good instinct by now about what we like, and without being precious about it, some things have to be scratched, and some things just land, almost like an olfactory sense. This smells good, therefore it goes, and the rejection of it works the same way. If it doesn't please us, we're not going to use it. I don't know. I guess you at some point after enough time working, you develop a trust in your instincts.
Yeah, I think it's always. We probably said this a lot, but it's the tennis match also. And it's not a match. It's not a competitive match in that way. It's like you lob something across the net, hoping it'll come back to you in an interesting new way, and then it's a different, what comes back to you is a little different from what you gave, and then it's so on and so on and so on, and you just start growing a story. You start filling in the contradictions. There's certain images that are compelling, like the girl crying, the pearls on the floor, a boy staring through a hole in the wall. You start to build a world from those ideas. The world gets bigger, the characters become more real, and so on and so on and so on, until eventually you get to the point where, quite frankly, you think, can we is there enough to write a treatment and show a producer? By
really, which point you no longer remember who came up with what. There's enough back and forth that, honestly, by the time we finish anything, neither of us remembers whose idea this was, which is kind of a very nice thing. I guess synergy is the word, but a complementary tennis match is maybe even better.
Yeah, and it really is that. It's like, is it full enough to ask somebody for money?
On my part, I think what I can say, I have an anecdote, is I think I read the script maybe 10 years after it was written, about. And I just remember reading the character Eli Wiseman. And I named my son Eli before I read the script.
And you live on Wiseman Street.
And I live now on Wiseman Street. I thought it was funny.
It's a weird anecdote.
Yeah.
It was meant to be, yeah.
And then the villain we named Patrick Watson, and that was also a coincidence. Strange coincidence.
I think the interesting anecdote is like being the person not responsible for the story, but being the person always going to the meetings with them at the bar or their office at that time.
Well,
and
music is story.
No, but I just mean like when you listen to them come up with a film, it's quite lovely because it's not really a director; it's like a two-headed dragon director. And what's lovely about it, it's not like they're ever like talking to each other. They're like this, literally like shooting out into the ether of ideas. So it's quite lovely to watch.
But it's okay. But you're a part of the story too.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe less in this project than before, because normally our projects don't have dialogue.
We've been talking about pearls for I've gone to like maybe 30 different pints of Pearl conversations, and every time it evolves, it's just lovely to watch you guys talk about building these lovely stories. It's the best.
Well, you're included from the start. I mean, from the beginning, to move anywhere forward, we need a title and to know who our composer will be.
Also, I think ideas build on other ideas. So Brigitte was working with us on Gymnasia, which went right into this, right?
There was stuff in between, but yeah, we went into another film right away. Yeah.
So but like puppets and techniques and story and the studio, it's just like a continuum. Where with Gymnasia, which was the film we made with with Phi and the film board and Felix and Paul, before this one, really, and there was even a question of which will be the one that starts, when will it begin and end, and that was this exact team, right? Yeah. So there was never really a break. It felt like we went right from the way of working together, building sets and puppets, right into this one. And in a way, our job, I think, was just to fill in the new story to keep the studio going,
keep the band together.
Okay, so it's funny because I was just thinking this is like a rock band vibe, right? Like what you're this process, and as the musician here, I'm curious, that thing about throwing out two ideas, throwing them out there, it sounds a bit like riffing. It's like, two guys riffing with guitars playing off each other. Like I'm imagining this. I'm not a musician, but
well, I think the music analogy is interesting because actually, let's say when the workday is over, it's very rare for us to go out and hang with other animators. Living in Montreal, this community, it's a intensely musical community. You could throw a rock out the window and hit a double bass. There's seriously, we're surrounded by this is a musical city. So most of the dialogue we have with other artists, decompressing or jamming, tends to be with musicians. So in a way, we listen to how they talk, we listen to how they solve problems, and we're a part of that dialogue. We tend to translate their way of dealing with problems into film. The way they solve musical problems, we try to solve film problems, but in a similar language and with very similar ideas, because that's our community. Animators we only see at festivals. I don't know why that is. It just works out that way.
Great. Okay, so in the film, one of the characters says, "It's always the story that gives something its value, never the object."
Yes.
Is that your approach to storytelling?
Well, I mean, it is about storytelling. That's kind of a meta comment on anyone who comes up with stories, whether they're writers or poets or sculptors. The value is a mysterious thing. What is gold worth except for the mythology we've put on it? There was a kind of impetus to this. There was a documentary we saw some time ago while we were in the early stages of making the story about an art forger, I think in Austria. I think it was like a Netflix film, who very capably and cleverly would create the paintings by the masters, which are known to have been lost to history by fires or war or whatnot. And somehow he managed to put them out on the market and make an insane amount of money selling them to the finest curators and the most esteemed institutions. Works by, whatever, from Bruegel to Max Ernst, which were authenticated and sold, hung. In fact, the book that I have at home of the paintings of Max Ernst has his painting on the front, on the cover, which is a fake. It turns out at some point he got lazy and used the wrong type of titanium white or something like that, which came up in an X-ray, and the whole thing collapsed. All those paintings were then retrogressively valued as worthless, and suddenly all these, all the heads of MoMA and such who were previously raving about the amazing composition in this painting and the brilliant use of color were suddenly in a heartbeat, convinced that the color is not that good and that the composition is not that good, because the painting suddenly became worthless. And the fun thing about it was that the painter himself kind of took that personally. He got insulted. He was like sad and confused, like what are you doing? Like, yesterday you thought this was a brilliant piece of work and priceless. Today you think it's garbage and worth nothing. So what changed? Well, the answer is that the story changed, which was our kind of clue to how to approach this, knowing that without the right story, there is no value. And I think that's kind of what we all do as storytellers. We invent something out of nothing and pretend that it is that it has meaning.
Yeah, and those art people, they wanted to believe,
and they wanted to believe, and it was greed that made them want to believe, ultimately.
I think they want to believe. The entire industry is based on the value of things. And so often art forgeries, there's more art forgeries than we know, largely because often they're ignored, because it's easier to keep the value and keep the story and keep the lie than to uncover it. And I think any of us, like when we talk about when we write a story, it's nice to do interviews, but we need to pay our rent and we need to buy food. And so the story we tell to a producer about not just the movie, but the future success of that movie, and also, which is a story of the studio and the studio's artisanal hand quality work, we're asking them to buy a story. And I think that's true of everybody in this room. You know, Pat's career is telling a story.
1,000%.
And that, you know, and he curates that story on a literally weekly basis. I think every artist ultimately has to.
The only value you have left is story. It basically totally cuts the hands off production, anything that looks fancy, like all the kind of things in film that had revolved around money has been totally chopped. So what you have left is only story. And the only thing you can do as a filmmaker is actually have a good story, or else guess what? You don't matter anymore. You can't make a car explode and make a film worth money anymore. The value has disappeared. So your only thing you have left is being a good storyteller. It's the only thing you have left. It's the same thing in music. Like, it is so easy to make a song sound good. I started when we had the boards, like to make a song sound good before was so hard. Now it's like this. So then what do you have left? It's like, it's the contextualization of why this music makes you feel a certain way, you know, and that is all that is left.
And speaking of stories, so there's a lot of features of fables or fairy tales in The Girl Who Cried Pearls, right? Like, there's magic in it, there's an orphan, there's a kind of wicked stepmother briefly. It's like, those are archetypal elements of fables and fairy tales. So what made you decide to go down that route, this sort of new original fable or fairy tale?
What did make us do that? You know what? I don't think that was conscious. I think the story...
You guys are coming off Cauchemar, is my memory. You know, we had done Cauchemar. You guys had done... my memory of it was that whenever we talked about things, you would have these, like, Cauchemar, you're like, I want to make an abstract story. Like, you have these kind of fun rules that you guys make for yourself. And my memory coming after Cauchemar was... I felt like it was a reaction to Cauchemar a bit, no?
I think it's less controlled than that. I think, like, a story kind of works like a puppet in a way, that where once you start building it, you start learning its preferences. There's some things that a puppet will not do, even if you try to force it to do. It will do what it wants to do. It's just built that way. There's certain gestures it can't do because of the way you've built it. And I think a story does that too. It will reject certain directions you want to go with it and inform you in its own sublime little way of where it wants to go. And so I don't think there was ever a moment where we said, let's make a fable. There's just one character avalanched into another, and then a location came, and then a conflict came. I mean, I guess in some way, we were certainly brought up in the 70s still on the stories of Hans Christian Andersen and classics like that, which were beautiful, romantic, haunted, but at the same time very moralistic, almost Christian in a way, where, like the little matchstick girl and things like that. They're very simple stories where a little girl suffers and then dies. There's a boon to it because she gets to heaven, and that's pretty much it. I think the story did actually navigate itself into that position, and we were kind of unhappy with that. I think it didn't feel, we felt disingenuous and dishonest to have made a moral story. We knew that there has to be some kind of subversion, some kind of rot, some, I don't know, not sarcasm, but some kind of something perverse would have to end it. It would have to turn, and eventually, that's the Austrian forger helped us figure that out.
To my perspective, all the movies you've done, maybe only Cauchemar wasn't on it because I was pregnant, but there's always a dream and an image and a short story of like imagination of this dream. That's how I always felt it. Mm-hmm. But on this movie, I don't know if it has to do also with co-writing with Isabelle, that like was a first.
When Isabelle came in, it was the two things started happening. One, we started developing, let's say we talk about what Maciek's talking about. We have this Hans Christian Andersen, and then you put on top of that the Bruno Bettelheim postmodern deconstruction of the fairy tale, and then you've got a story and you've deconstructed it, and then when we started working with Isabelle, it was a question of now let's ground it in Montreal and now let's ground it in character. And then you start to get the idea of the jeweler becomes less of a kind of cliche and becomes who is this guy? Then you have the pawnbroker, who begins as this kind of Dickensian villain, but then once we start working with Isabelle and developing it, it's like, oh, he actually becomes quite a lonely man, and that's really when you sort of leave the archetypes behind and maybe start making a movie, and then the same started to happen with the boy. Like, what's his story? And realizing the boy is exploiting the loneliness of this old man, and in fact also exploiting the religious nature of the jeweler, and his naivete, based on his belief in a higher power and a world run by God. And so that all becomes kind of interesting. And I think, so yes, you're right. So the working with Isabelle, and then the working with Isabelle led into working with actors who continue to bring all this depth to, let's say, fairly simple characters at the beginning. And then the final aspect of that, let's say, putting the soul into what's just a story is Patrick's work, of course, and the work of all those musicians. They add that last little ingredient of heart and soul to, again, something that just begins as poetic images, maybe even sometimes overly intellectual conversations. But by the end, hopefully, you've given it a base that makes people care a little bit.
A soul.
Yeah.
But going back to the religion there, I mean, the film has the line, "The Tears of Eve," right, in it. Was that, how did that come out? Did you find that out? Where did that come from, that image? Because I assume that the Crying Pearls predated that.
Well, the whole idea, when you come, one of the things we've discovered is when you come up with ideas, you're not the first to come up with anything. So that little fable is even too weak a word. What would that be? Like, this is a story that comes out of like a deep medieval mystical tradition that we quoted, I think, verbatim, because that's what happens. You start digging. Once you start digging, you you start reaching the collective unconscious and all that, which we don't believe in God, but we might believe in the collective unconscious.
Interesting. And I mean, you guys all have kids, all of you, or
We all have kids, yeah.
right? So is there a hope that this film might become sort of a classic that parents might like watch with their children?
Not
as
consciously, I think.
My kid was so scared every time he came to the studio. He was like, "Why are their puppets so mean?" And then he started to like it. And now he's old enough because it took 7 years. So he was like 5 or 4.
5.
What?
5.
Well, 5 years of production and 2 years of pre-production and 1 year of like post-production. Yeah, that's maybe 8 years.
No.
Anyways, my kid was young and he would come to the studio and he was like, overwhelmed by the puppets and the sets. And it was like so scary. But now he's 11 and he loves it.
We weren't really thinking about other people's kids. I
Yeah.
think we were, it mattered to us for sure though, that we start making stories that contribute to a mythology about the place where we're actually raising our kids. We wanted them to identify. If you live in New York, every street has been mythologized. Every corner is something that you know from a story, and I think that enriches the world you walk around in daily. The same thing with. I mean, we wanted to do that for Montreal. We wanted to do what Pink Floyd did for London with the floating pig over the Battersea. We wanted the first time I actually went to London and saw the Battersea chimneys out of the metro. Like in my mind's eye, I saw that pig. That place was not just those were not just smokestack. There was it was history and a history of the imagination, and it actually matters to us that our kids walk around these streets and know that this is a place where it's a place that lives in your imagination.
But what's interesting about that, if you look at like the early work, if you look at the work that Brigitte and Patrick did, that was the beginning of a kind of mythologizing of Montreal through the music videos and the music and the covers, which became really a tradition of musical Montreal. With Patrick and Godspeed and Arcade Fire. In a way, our movie is a kind of like a long overdue extension of that.
That's a good point, because actually Montreal in our minds is not just the buildings; it's also the atmosphere and the atmosphere. I mean, like, you're so responsible for that, and so is Godspeed, and so is Arcade Fire. Those, you guys are the first people in my time to have made music that sounds like the city I live in.
And that exported also
right.
A myth of the city.
Exactly.
I mean, I guess from my point of view, I'm like a building off of Godspeed, because like in a sense, when I came to the city, I was from a small town, and I think when I came here, one of the first concerts I saw was Godspeed, and it blew my mind. They had beautiful visuals. It was orchestral but rock. It was the first show I'd see that it could integrate those two things so seamlessly without it being tacky. And
the imagery was Montreal,
the imagery
too.
was very strong. Like the one thing about Godspeed is that their imagery is like out of this world strong, like the projections in the show. So, I mean,
and a kind of combination of beauty and melancholy.
I am definitely a continuation of their tradition in that way. I was very, 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 very inspired by that.
I think we all are.
Well, yeah, of course. I like, you know what I mean? So, I mean, and even like when we talk about the other bands that were incorporating like violins and cellos into like rock or pop, I mean, that just wouldn't have existed without Godspeed.
Well, and we should say, of course, that we finally got some players to be part of the soundtrack.
Yeah, we have Sophie who's playing the violin on it, and we have actually Richie also from Arcade Fire. So there's a collaborative effort. You have Becky Foon who played in Silvermine Scion, and then you have like a bunch of classical players on the other end that are just it's just a very wonderfully city with lots of incredible different types of musicians and stuff. But I do think our strength from a city was funny. I mean, the Quebecers are very inspired by prog rock in general, like in the nature of like, if I go play in the north of Quebec in a small town, the grandmother will sit in front of a guitar amp. Nowhere else in the world will that happen. they still go to Supertramp shows. So the idea of like complicated pop songs is very much a strong heritage of Quebec. If you look at Robert Charlebois and all the music and all my French friends who play music. So I think there's that spirit of bringing those two worlds into one. I think the city is really good at that in general, you know. But it's an interesting idea.
No, and that's been our thing too. So again, to talk about Isabelle Mandelian, we met her working with Momentum Theatre here in Montreal, which is where we've also who were also actually, we're talking about mythologizing the city. They were heavily doing that in the 1990s, creating, you know,
Helter Skelter,
Helter-Skelter.
Estrus, big shows. Yeah, and intentionally subverting the our history for something a little bit more creative.
And what we were, that the combination of sort of myth and fable and technology, which was part of their theater, was incredibly inspiring to us. That was let's say our version of Godspeed was Momentum, and the actors there, which included Stéphane Demers, who was one of the major actors for the performances in La Jeune Fille. And it was our first time working with him, but we respected his work for 2 decades. Natalie Claude plays the evil stepmother character in the reference for Pearls, but she's also an actor in Higgledy Piggledy Pop. So those kind of threads of connections have been maybe more, I think maybe more important to us than, in a way, like, let's say we write stories to get all these people involved in our lives.
And I don't know, our first project together.
Yeah, she was doing a photo book and
Our serial photo book, and I met Patrick by accident, and I asked him to do the music, and the band was built on that. And our first show was just here at Cinéma L'Amour, and it was a theatral show about the music and visuals. And it was my first time doing projections, and it was quite something. And unfortunately, nobody filmed that.
I can't believe you have no film of that show. Yeah, and then it was sold out because everybody just wanted to see inside the porno theater.
Yeah.
Should have known.
What was this saying?
On our flyer,
come-
I think I have a flyer still. It's
Yeah.
come early, you get a clean seat.
Exactly.
But
Why are we shooting this here and not Cinema L'Amour?
Yeah.
It's too expensive, huh?
Oh, no, it was
I think
cheap at the time.
this obviously you talk about inspiring like different people like across the country and filmmakers, but I guess when you take cities like Winnipeg or Montreal, is that one of the things that a difficulty in a city like Montreal or Winnipeg is that there is no big business here. You know, there was no labels here because it's a French-speaking thing, which caused so much conflict in terms of like any major label music thing ever planting themselves here. So then we had no rules, you know, and we would go. I remember like you'd play a show here, and we had this thing where the intention was like, we're just gonna make this crazy night, you know. And then you go to Toronto and they're like, where's your press kit and your press photos? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about here? You know what I mean? But, and in the end, we did much better than any of those bands with promo kits because still the intention was somewhat like we're going to make something crazy. But that doesn't mean you don't pay attention to being smart with business because, like you say, you still have to pay a rent. But we definitely, this city, and I think Winnipeg is another city, like you have Guy Madden. Guy Madden comes from a city that has no business hopes. He did making films in a crazy place, excluded, you know what I mean? And so I find that also a bit interesting.
But that was the era also. At our beginning, like, I mean, Montreal was different than today, that
yeah,
we were young and things
there
were
was no
cheap.
labels, there was nowhere to play.
Things were
we
cheap,
playing
and we could
lofts.
just do art and just like work a little bit on the side to make money, but we were creative because of this city also. I
Yeah, it's
think.
really lovely. I don't know.
Well, something fun happened in the city during our time. Like back in the day, and Montreal was still being defined by like what, like April wine and like the box. You
No,
know, like,
totally. There was no
and
venues.
and there wasn't, and it didn't feel correct.
you had there was okay, you had Fofone Electric, and
I mean, you got
had,
Voivod maybe, and that was awesome.
yeah, but you didn't
like,
really
it
have
was-
any music bars really. There was everything was acid jazz or
Yeah,
some
yeah,
shit
yeah.
like that, and then Kaza opened once again because the Godspeed guys laying the tracks down that gave a voice to a different type of music, which I think really was very helpful for all of us in the city.
And something cool started happening, and it's the thing that Chris mentioned or alluded to with our work with Momentum. All of all the artistic entities starting to emerge in the late 80s, early 90s, were what was impressive to us about it is their kind of fearlessness in using technology, which we were maybe a little at the beginning adverse to. We thought I think we were kind of Luddites and maybe a little proud of being too traditional or something, but they really lit a fire under our ass about just embracing it all. To not be afraid of it, to use it and to seamlessly mix, to never throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just because something new exists doesn't mean you have to get rid of the last 100 years of artistic problem solving, and vice versa. Just because those work doesn't mean you have to resist new impulses. And we've been, and once we kind of clue into that, we realize that everyone historically that we've ever liked has had that mind frame in some way. At some point, I was reading a biography of Chopin, and there was a great part there where he was friends with the guy who invented the pedal for the pedals for the piano. And as soon as they were in conversation about it, the guy was telling me, "Hey, I'm working on something, and I'm gonna put some pedals in this thing." He's like, "First one you build, give it to me. I want to use it." They were instantly open to merging the newest ideas with the oldest ideas, and that's been something that we've used as a kind of guiding principle ever since. We were actually delighted to be doing that.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because exactly when I go play with an orchestra, the institutions of music or the educational institutions will say the exact opposite. So you'll be like, I'll be incorporating a part of Ravel, and then the oboe player will lift his hand being like, "You can't do that. That would really bother Ravel." I'll be like, "Let me tell you who it wouldn't bother. It's fucking Ravel. It bothers you because you want to you have this idea about these composers that's totally false. I know that if you fuck with their music, it's going to make them happy in the grave. It's the idea that would bother them is so absolutely absurd. It's an example of how ridiculous the institution becomes protecting an idea that has nothing to do. And then the young creators leave a school are trying to hold on to the past in this obscene way that everybody they study didn't. And it's a total breakdown of education because of it.
Are you talking about the National Film Board?
No, I'm talking about institutions in general. When you deal with the institutions, when something's no, but it's true that big institutions they really
You're just trying to suck us in.
no, it's a false pretext in terms of saying Chopin, for example. It's a great example because everybody gotta play exactly like Chopin. Half his tunes are all improvs at a party he got drunk at and went home and wrote it down. It's not an intellectual idea.
Well, that's true. I think for us from the very beginning, and I'm glad because we're working with Momentum that came out of the artistic director, the main guy there was Jean-Fred Messier, who came out of the tradition of Robert Lepage, which was very technologically based. And then that led directly to us doing the Real Eyes and Madame Tootly Pootly, which led directly to us doing stereo and Cauchemar and VR and all that, and so on and so on. And in this project, maybe it's a little more subtle, but also embracing that. And that's kept us from, because our chosen métier is stop motion and everything is hand built and everything is very precious, that little bit of Momentum Theater has kept us from being too precious about stop motion, because it is a world. Animation as well can become actually not too far from what Pat's talking about. There's an idea of of hand drawing things or stop motion being this some kind of pure sport. We have to have the rules of baseball from 1920, which we've never been interested in ever, at all. And even though I guess to look at this as our most traditional piece ever, maybe in this case the technology is in the story. I don't know. or even in the little subtle things. You know, a big thing with Pat with this was, without spoiling the story, the postmodern aspect of the story, which is the whole, let's say, twist of the story. Pat threaded that into the soundtrack in really kind of subtle, interesting ways that once again we'd have to spoil. But it
Well, I
ended
think
up,
if people are watching this, they've probably seen it. No,
I don't know, not necessarily.
not necessarily. But
Anyway, whatever. Say what you're gonna.
no, but like I guess when you like do music, you like your selection of instruments is like picking a cast for your film. You know what I mean? So like the cast for who would do the Pearl was a really important question. So I picked that wisely to kind of like intentionally cast it the way you've casted the Pearl as a character. So sonically, it represents exactly what it does in the film without giving it away.
Oh yeah, and I should say also, when we're talking about not being the technology in this was actually largely scanning and 3D printing, which we dove into in a huge way.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say is that the pandemic, in a way, was very positive for me personally, because we signed our contract March 2020 and everybody shut down. And Chris and Maciek stayed home and I was alone at the studio. And I was like, how the hell are we going to make this movie? How long is this going to last? So I had this idea that I had worked a little bit on before on other projects, but not personally making it, was 3D printing. And I bought a machine, and for 3 months, I just learned it and started doing it. And that completely changed the way we work at the studio, because we could build something in a day and test it. And then it became, we had a scanner and we could scan stuff and miniaturize it. And then with puppets, it's just the idea kept going and going, like, oh, we can take this puppet we made by hand, scan it, enlarge it, film it in close up. And then it was just endless, this technology that helped us, just us three, working for 4 years in the studio. There was nobody else except the NFB technicians, but it would have not been possible building everything by hand. It was just magical how this tool helped us.
And I believe that the pandemic also had an impact on you guys in terms of the puppet making. I think you've talked about this before, right? Like how you started. So I'd love you to just tell that story again.
Well, normally we would have been building the puppets at the studio, but when lockdown hit, since we're clearly a non-essential service, and that's putting it mildly, we were actually legally not allowed to be at the studio together. So the first almost year, we would just, for the sake of companionship, meet at the park or walk, 6 feet apart through back alleys, and we would individually work in our homes. So I started sculpting the hands and the bodies of the puppets. Chris concentrated on the faces. We actually had the kind of indulgence of more time than we ever would have gotten. I think Chris started playing with Chavant
For the first time.
the first time ever. Professional clays rather than what we would normally have used. And we would talk on the phone and arrange maybe every now and then to meet in the back alley with a six-pack, and one would come from the north, one would come from the south, and I would hold out the body and he would hold out the head, and we just kind of go look at it a little bit in perspective and realize, like, shit, the head's way too big. And this is something that never would have happened if we were working in tandem in our studio, but these weird little accidents happen. So the head, but there was nothing we could do. We couldn't we don't have the magical powers to shrink heads. So actually, that became part of the style of the film.
It's funny, and I don't notice it anymore. It couldn't have been any other way, right?
Probably not. No.
But at the time, we were really we
favor.
really thought we might have fucked up.
Never noticed that.
No, the heads are way too big.
Never noticed it.
Yeah,
And it became something after
Yeah.
that we kept on the other movie.
Oh, what did we do it again? Oh,
South of
that's
Midnight.
true. South
The
of
head
Midnight,
was
we
too
did it,
small. It was like, we have to make it larger.
Yeah. Puppets have big heads.
So talk a bit more, like, very specifically about the model making. You mentioned the kind of clay. Go into detail. Like, there's going to be people who are interested in this. Like, and the painting as well, right? The underpainting and all that. And what inspired you
I'd say, well, in terms of like the materiality of this, there's no rules at all. Like we go everything from like plastic 3D printing to clay to silicone to even the heads of the puppets, which are supposed to look like old wood, and they have this multi-layered oil painting, and they were made of Chivant. They're actually silicone molds and painted over a white plastic that we found.
And we go from like, oh, the pawn shop, like it's full of so many different things, like from old little props that were made from Madame Tutti Putli to things I would buy in a shop, in a thrift store, to 3D printing them. Sometimes there's a guitar we made, sometimes a guitar we bought that was miniature. I think that's what makes it really interesting. There's no rules also to build everything or find things.
Also, Montreal has a phenomenal city for garbage. I don't know if you've noticed. Yeah. I mean, my walk to the studio is sometimes like walking through a crack house, man. Like there's so much, the things people throw out and the way they throw it out is unbelievable.
Do
Things
you remember the mystery of the little piece of metal?
Yeah.
So Maciek comes up to me and he's like, I keep finding these metal little rods in the street. It's
Which are
so
amazing,
amazing.
Oh my God, we use them for everything.
And then I
found
popped
one
into my
yesterday.
brain. It was the cleaning cart. You know, those like, they clean
brushes.
the brushes,
The
they
brushes
clean the
that clean the
street.
streets on the truck.
So they
are
kept
actually
like
made of
falling on
steel.
the sidewalk.
And they
We use
keep
them for
breaking
all kinds of things.
everything. Everything that we needed to not break or be braced from behind the wall to keep in midair. It's all made out of
The brushes
metal, like steel bristles from street
that you
cleaning.
can't buy anywhere.
No, you can't buy that. No, it fascinated us for 2 years. Like, what are these things? But anyway, everything else, like rain-soaked cardboard boxes we
wood
would bring
that's
to the
rotten.
studio. Rotten wood from somebody throwing out an old planter. Empty Tylenol bottles got used. Like
Our recycling box is usually part of
like
our tools.
Kinder eggs got used. Those things when you open a carton of milk and pull out that weird little tab. I think there's like 60 of them in our sets. They're useful for all kinds of stuff.
Or something you would find, like I would buy something on, let's say, eBay that was precious, but it was too big, and then scan it and then miniaturize it. Like the little apple in the movie is actually a real piece that we miniaturized and redid as a small version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say what's interesting because Patrick was involved, not pasting on a soundtrack, but coming from our last two projects and being part of the process, he had a similar experience where it was that you found like a piano that had an interesting note. So he was collecting sounds over the years as well.
Oh, weirder
What was
than that.
What was that sort? What was the piano with the?
I can't remember now.
Wasn't there something with a piano with that had one note?
The Parisian piano.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Wasn't there a piano in Paris that you found?
there's another piano in Paris that I use for for some of the themes. It's a 1-string piano instead of 3, which has this really beautiful tone. I wrote parts of the themes in Eastern Europe when I was doing that film thing on the Celeste. I mean, I just constantly when I work with them, I just collect all the shit and I send it to them, and then some things work and some things don't. But we always talk so early on that I always get excited and score the film like 6 times by accident. No, but in a fun way, just because they're fun ideas. They're fun ideas to write music
but
for.
it's the same. What I mean is like it's a process of collecting over. It's such a long process that you could find a piece of garbage in the street and not put it in the film for 4 years. True. You know, there's a little kind of bicycle cart that happened to be in our studio when we moved in.
Oh yeah, that was
It's
like,
a major piece of the.
yeah, it was like this Portuguese landlord was like, this is the studio, and there was this little cart. Like it was like an ice cream
Like
cart.
a miniature ice cream cart, yeah.
And it was like, what is this? He's
Connected
like,
to a
I
bicycle.
have no clue why it's in their studio,
that
but you can have it. And it was
Yeah.
like, let's put it in the movie.
And it's a major piece in the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
It's one
It's
of
in
the
the
major
pawn
pieces
shop.
in the pawn shop. But it just hung around the studio for years. Not like, oh, no one break that. No one touched that. It just,
It's actually all broken now.
yeah. Well, we broke,
mean,
yeah.
We have to
now
cut
I
it in
would
mini
say,
pieces.
I still say like sometimes I'd be doing the music and I always say this, but the film would be on pause, and then you actually get to take in the actual world they made, and it's. I would highly suggest for people to if they can pause it at home and just look at some of the scenes. It's pretty intense. I'd always be like, holy fuck, I can't believe they put that much in it. Like the pawn shop is unreal. There's so much things in the pawn shop. It's so unreal. But even scenes like when you get to you're in the harbor, you're there for like 6 seconds. If you pause it and you see the actual, it's totally mind blowing.
Yeah, in Montreal, you're talking about serendipity, really, right? Like just accidentally finding stuff, right? That kind of thing. And Montreal really is a very serendipitous city. I think you're right about the garbage, just with stuff flying around. It's like, right? And clearly, in terms of your artistic process, that seems to be a major part of it, right? Like stuff sort of like emerges or happens, and then you might use it, you might not use it. You dose it in later, years later, or whatever, right?
Yeah, you don't know whether you're going to use it, but you collect. That's the fun thing about collecting this stuff, is that it all ends up together on a shelf, and in due time you start. I don't know. This is where it gets into weird metaphysics, almost like these objects start a dialogue amongst themselves. It's almost like these pieces of junk start defining themselves by what they're next to, and they're either compatible, in which case you can glue them together and they become something better, or they reject each other. But the things that actually end up developing a kind of friendship, they get used because there's something attractive about that. There's something kind of magical about realizing that these things that had no meaning individually end up becoming part of a new entity.
I have a little anecdote on the city. So one day I get a call from, I have a blank, from Centropole. Our friend Garth. Garth calls me. He's like, hey, I've been collecting in my storage since 2007 Igilty Pigilty Pop sets.
That's true.
I need to clear it. Please come and get it.
Right.
And I went there, and it was all these like damaged buildings that have been laying there for years. And it was like, let's put it into this movie and remake the city. So I went with a truck, got it all, put it back in our studio, and we made it again with the texture and decay of those buildings.
We had more recycling of our old props in this than we've ever done. In fact, the piano from Gymnasia is prominent. Higgledy-piggledy pop buildings appear more or less the way they were, with only a few additions.
It's funny also because...
Tulipuli's record player.
Yeah, it's funny because it's all different scales, but it worked in some...
Yeah, somehow. No, yeah. Tulipuli's record player is in there. Also, the magazine, the Châtelain magazine, for sharp-eyed pausers of video. Her Châtelain magazine that she's reading is also in the pawn shop.
Even my boat from the first video I did for Patrick.
That's true.
Drifters. Got into
That's in.
Well, we axed it at the end.
Oh, we cut it out, but it was there for.
But it was there for.
It was
we
there.
shot
for,
it.
We shot it.
Yeah.
The miniature boat.
Yeah, no, I never saw it. That's why I was
It went by in Paris, but it looked
too ridiculous.
somehow, even though it was shot for real, it looked like the worst special effect.
It was hard to make it like move, and it didn't look like the right boat in it, but it was there. It was shot.
And in terms of your inspiration, we're talking about inspiration from just serendipitous sort of accidents, but specific inspiration. Somebody at the NFB mentioned Aubrey Beardsley inspired the one of the characters, right? But like, are there other very specific?
Just physically, I have to say. So Aubrey Beardsley was like, it's like we cast him as an actor playing a different character. In no way was it based on his personality. But we've done that before.
We had a very suggestive face.
Yeah.
You've seen Beardsley look like that nose could open a can of beans.
And we wanted a kind of Dickensian character, and he fit the bill physically perfectly. Sometimes we based characters on the actors, like the actual Girl Who Cried Pearls is based on Andrea, the actress who played her. Originally, the puppet was not actually was going to be built kind of bespoke. We had another look based on a movie character, but the performance of the actress shooting the animatic was so compelling that we based the face on her.
Even the old man, no?
The old man ended up being kind of a hybrid of a bunch of different people.
But James
was part of it.
Yeah.
Colm was
Feore,
part of it,
actually.
and then I think there was a few other old
Yeah,
guys.
it's a mix,
It ended up being mixed.
But I remember
Yeah.
printing his face so
Yeah.
you could like sculpt it.
Yeah, no, that's true. But there's no rules there. We had in Tootly Pootly, we had Man Ray and Duchamp ended up in the movie. Jerzy Kaczynski decided to drop in and play a character in Tootly Pootly. Our main characters tend to be like the boy and Tootly Pootly. For some reason, we tend to go for a slightly more primitive sculpting for the. I don't know why, but the characters become more. I don't know. You can put more into a character if it's primitively sculpted, I think. Like the boy is not based on anything.
No.
And he's got far fewer features in terms of
It was
sculpting.
like many research that like ended up like to make the boy. I remember many faces on the.
We just kind of, I think Maciek kind of sculpted them together back and forth, and there was like it was like it's tough to be primitive when you start to feel you deserve like sometimes you feel you're too good to be primitive or something, or you're. So it's those kind of faces like Tootly Pootly's and hers just sort of come out of the ether. Like I don't remember how the boy came into the movie in a weird way. A lot of it's a painting, but yeah, I don't know. No, there's no rhyme or reason to anything.
It's so sad.
Well, sometimes it's fun to pilfer a character from history and give them a second life. Do you remember the anecdote? It was
John Irving?
Yeah, it was. We went to a lecture by John Irving talking about some new book that he had, and he admitted that he's from reading Joseph Heller's Catch-22. He stole the paralyzed pilot as the father of Garp in the Life According to Garp. Just in a way, like as another act of recycling, I suppose.
Yeah,
where you can,
it was really his idea was like don't look at my life to find out where my stories come from. Look at who I read.
exactly.
So yeah, he also stole Owen Meany from the kid from the Tin Drum.
Right.
And in a weird way, you could even say our boy is kind of in the continuum of Owen Meany and the Tin Drum kid as well. So we actually are interested in that. It's very similar. Like, don't look at our lives. Look at what we're reading or watching or like we steal from art galleries and old movies more than going, oh, the funniest thing happened to me today. Yeah. I swindled a pawnbroker. Yeah.
So would you say that your inspiration comes actually more from other media, like movies or history or whatever it is, than animation?
Oh God, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Animation feeds us not.
No.
I think reading is a big one that people don't talk enough about, because I started reading pretty late in my life because I can't read very well with paper, and I started doing a lot of audiobooks. I rediscovered that, but I think that it was my biggest regret not reading more younger now that I can listen to audiobooks and get through the book. But you know what I mean? It's like, it's really like, I would say if you're a young artist, you better be reading. It's the only regret I really have. Not reading more. It's
reading
like
in old movies, I think I was really excited. Also sometimes reading the trades, like American Cinematographer has been often when we're in production, that's when we get an American Cinematographer subscription. They had an article about shooting night and the color temperature of the moon, and I remember being super inspired for our night shots by that article on nighttime color temperature and trying to emulate that in our nighttime shots. So
yeah, I think that was a soundtrack in the studio, just also audio interviews on cinematographers and talking about their work and inspiring us, like how to do this and this, like I always don't know how to say it in English. The screams, the stream, les écrans pour faire la.
Oh yeah, I think that we stole that from Instagram. To be honest, it was an Instagram post about someone, a miniature photographer, someone shooting movie miniatures who used scrims of cloth to create depth.
To create like fog in the background, so we didn't, because you cannot do it in animation. So it was like kind of like the key in every set in the background to put these like little gray scrims in the back.
But animation itself actually does, we don't what people in the animation community, when we meet them, are constantly surprised and beguiled by they assume we've seen all the latest animations, but we never have, and they're always incredulous. And for us, it's like, after a day of working on animation at the studio, coming home and to watch an animation feels like homework. It feels like completely the last thing we want to be doing. It actually does nothing for us. It doesn't inspire us. It just makes us more tired. The idea of and also you want to be careful. Sometimes you need to protect yourself. It's better not to know what other people are doing in your own métier. You could end up accidentally copying them and being derivative. And I think it's much more interesting to use the abstraction of other faculties to inform your work, rather than animation itself. That ends up being cyclical and uninteresting.
For me personally, I didn't watch too much animation. Obviously, I have a kid, so I do sometimes. But I was a juror at the Sommet of Cinema just 3 weeks ago, and I watched, I think, 100 movies. And there is something that is fun to watch animation of other techniques, of other people doing stuff. And then at Annecy, I went to see a bunch of movies, and for me, it was inspiring. I saw a lot of like different techniques or different storylines, and it was fun. I liked it.
In terms of characterization, how much of it is in literally the characters in the film? How much of it comes across from the art direction? How much from the animation in terms of the movement? Or is it just always a combination? Like in your mind, do you even separate those two things?
Well, I mean, I think I talked earlier. In this case, so much of the soul and heart and soul of the characters comes from the actors that we chose. We really cast this one carefully in a way we've never done before. We auditioned child actors to play the boy and the girl. We worked with pros like Stéphane Demers. I think who played 3 characters.
Yeah.
You cannot underestimate his contribution to this movie in terms of the gestures he chose.
He would play the 3 different characters, and sometimes 2 in the same day, and they're so different. Like nobody would know it's the same actor who did it. It's beautiful.
The process of working with actual actors at the early stages of a film, trying to figure out the blocking and the timing, is for us like that was a revelation for us when we first started doing that. There is I think any animator will agree that when you are working a puppet, you are not just the animator, you are also an actor. And in some weird way, even more perversely, you're actually a director at that point, even if there already is a director. But what ends up happening, and also I think every humble animator will admit that they inform the animation by their own physicality. If you're working alone, you will often you'll look at yourself in the mirror, trying to do a gesture and trying to pick up on the little nuances and put that into your work. But what ends up happening is, for example, in a situation where you would have multiple characters, is that it's you talking to you if you do that. And the great benefit of working with actors is that they're from the very beginning infusing their very distinct personalities into the characters. So it gives a kind of realism to those interactions, where you can actually see the idiosyncrasies of very, very different personalities within the puppets. They're not two of you. They're alien and sovereign. And that's a beautiful thing to put in, because what I think it does, I mean, one of the things we always try to do, and I think it's worthwhile, is to use puppets in such a way that you, as soon as possible, stop thinking of them as puppets and start thinking of them as these people. Otherwise, I think it's very difficult to have an emotional connection. But if you accomplish this, you can actually, you have a pathos and a sympathy that you can react to in the film that you couldn't get if you never had worked with actors, because they bring so much spontaneity, so much. Good actors are amazing.
And you mind the gestures; they're gold. I think what I noticed animating, and I'm sure. So we had wonderful animators: Laura Stewart, Laura Vendetti, Peggy Arell, and we animated a few scenes ourselves. And when you're working with a great reference like Stéphane Demers gave us, you're not hobbled by that. You're not. It's not. There's nothing. It's not like there's nothing left for you to do. Which I think a lot of animators are afraid of. They want to be the ones who bring the whole everything to the table. It ends up being a real conversation. You're having a conversation with Stéphane Demers by interpreting Stéphane's gestures through the puppet, and no one wins there. Like it's not my work or Stéphane's at the end. It's a living puppet. And then if you're lucky enough, in this case with dialogue, then Colm Feore or James Hyndman is the third element. And now you have, I think that's a wonderful thing about working with puppets and animation in general that actors don't get to experience, which is a character can be a conversation between three people that you as a viewer just think of as a character.
To add to that, it was the first movie that we ever done that you were not the only animator. And I think the actors helped so much to translate that other animators could copy exactly the movement. Sometimes it was Chris animating something and Laura finishing something, and it's still the same character. So that was a new thing that we tried on this movie.
I have a question for you guys. How did you guys get the hand movements in this film? I think the one thing in the animation that really sticks out to me is the hands in this film.
You mean technically?
Well,
It's just something about.
But every animator did hand shots, so I
know, but it was something about this film. The hand movements in this film were like even from the first time I watched it, just like the way they move so great. It's so wonderful.
Because our actors are theater actors, so they're.
Talking with their hands.
Yeah, they talk with their hands.
Is that different from your other films? Like I don't remember.
Because they never strive for realism. They strive for expression. And
I don't think we've never had so much hand action needed, I don't think.
Yeah, because even like the scene where he puts his hand through the light, it's so pretty the way the hand moves in that scene. Like it's one of my favorite moments in the entire film.
If you look at the animatic, the way it's like acted, it's exactly that.
No, I know.
That's why the hands in the puppet world
in the
is
other
translated.
films, I just saw in the other films I never noted. Like Man really have the eyes that are really. I find this film is the hands. It's like there's something about
possible.
Because there's no eye movements in this one.
Yeah, and it's just like all the hands are like my favorite part of the animation in the entire film. Like they're always so pretty how they move. It's so wonderful.
Well, you know what the funny thing about that is that when we started working with the actors, they had also been in lockdown, right? So there was no theater going on. There were no movies going on, and these people were starved for their moment in the light.
They haven't played.
And we were the first people to have hired them since the shit went down. And so when they came to the studio, they had like 8 times the normal energy that they would normally. They weren't tired. They weren't running from one gig to another. They had nothing going on, and their batteries were fully charged.
And weirdly, we had to work with plexiglass and mask, and like it was.
But
like,
I mean,
they didn't give a shit though.
No, but that's it.
The
It didn't
dynamics that they
show.
exactly. But they brought to the production a kind of a like hysterical energy.
Yeah.
They
And
were
also-
just bursting with gestures. I think if we were filming them for a movie, it would have been too hammy. It would have been too much. It wouldn't have worked.
But remember, we canceled it twice also.
Oh yeah,
Like
That's
there
true.
was 2 shooting canceled because of COVID, like epidemic in the studio. So it was
Yeah.
like they were waiting.
But I think a lot of the thing about your question with the hands is like we didn't even ask. They just overacted to a ridiculous
'cause if
point,
you think
and
every scene
and we
is
used
like,
all of
whether
it.
it's the pawn
Well,
guy,
the mares
whether
went,
it's
but
like
it's true.
everybody's
But
moving
even the
it.
kids who were not so trained did a lot of that. But I think Demers especially he brought. I mean, it's a tour de force of hand acting. I don't know, like he just started going out of control, and then I think when people work with us, they always assume that the animatic stage will be that it's like they're going to treat us like puppets. It's going to be very precise, and it's exactly the opposite of what we want, because we know that the animation phase is going to be very precise.
Yeah.
We need them to be loose and playful, and just give us everything. Use the space. Go over here. Try it this way. Try it that way.
Yeah,
and
we
it
film with like 3
Yeah.
cameras, 3 angles, so we have everything, and then we can choose after what's the best.
Yeah, and we're not shooting. They don't have to wait for lighting. They're not
No.
waiting for. There's not a.
There's
4 people.
No, there's props, but they're like,
Yeah.
not really.
It's like a black
props.
box.
This setup
Yeah.
here, it took like 4 times as much time to set up, and has more people than our animatic settings. So, which means that they don't wait around for anything.
Like our camera moves
Yeah.
were made with like a wheelchair.
No, I mean literally, we're like I think it was the first thing. It's like we're shooting animatic. We need to buy a wheelchair, because that's how you get dollies. By the way, that's how they did dollies in the 70s. And we're still excited by all of that. The cinema stuff is what excites us still, but we don't like the trappings of the cinema stuff. Like that bores the living shit out of us. To us, that takes all the fun out of it, and I think it takes a lot of the fun out of it for actors too. So we give them what we hope is a good script and a good scene, and they block it and they play, and then we
And
go.
we let them go crazy, and an actor appreciates that, then they give you more.
It's the same thing when I do my musicians.
Yeah.
I work with musicians. It's really chaotic, and they're like, "What the fuck?" And I'm just like, "Yeah."
What's interesting though in the animatic is that in an art direction perspective, we kind of tape the room down exactly to where we're going to build the same like scale. We're just going to scale it down, but it has to be exact. So the movements are like perfect.
Yeah,
thought it
and
was-
we have a fake little door if people have to
Yeah,
go
and
in
a fake
door.
desk, but it's the right place and the right size. And yeah, those are interesting things to do when you do the
Yeah, and it's
animatic.
the most fun part of the process for us. It took us 6 months to edit it, but it was fun to make.
But it's the edit of the movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't change. It's like
Yeah.
the Bible is the animatic, and we just have to copy that.
And you mentioned your voice actors. Obviously, you have incredible talents with Colm Feore and James Hyndman. So how do you go about casting them?
Well, James, we know from working with Momentum. He played Henry Miller in Estrus, which was written by Jean-Frédéric Maciek. And then we more properly got to know him a few years later when we made 13 short films with Guy Madden that eventually became a feature called The Forbidden Room. And on that the 3 of us were
Art directors.
art directors. And
we
James
had
was,
to be
James
3.
was actually cast in that as well. And he did great. And we just kept in mind his very kind of unique presence. And you know what happened is that we were in a bar and decided to ask the waitress who she would most like to read Harry Potter to her children. And she went away. She thought about it for a little moment. It was like we were kind of looking for something like almost like an audio book treatment. Like who would you have read this book and do all the voices and keep the dynamics going and keep your interest. And she maybe 5 minutes later came back and went, I got it, James Hyndman. And we went, of course. And instantly contacted him, and he was kind enough to agree. With Colm, we know his work from Jesus, like 1993, I think, when we first saw 32 short films about Glenn Gould, and he was Glenn Gould. In fact, we weren't really familiar with Glenn. We were too dumb to know who Glenn Gould was at that time, and so we left that screening thinking that was Glenn Gould. That's what he looked like, and that's who he was. And he had this beautiful, poetic way of being on screen that we thought would be actually have all the flair and magic to be this character as well. And also, he's a little bit older now, and it seemed appropriate.
And also, of course, those two voices, James and Colm Feore, the movie depends almost entirely on narration. You know, for people who think narration ruins films, stay away. This one's not for you, because it's driven entirely by the voice, and even every character is driven by voice. And so what we discovered with working with those two actors who work in a very different style is that, I mean, the actors of that level will take a pretty good script, let's say, and just make it a great script. And then once again, like the music, like Stefan Demers, that's another chance for that's the layer of soul. That's one more layer of soul. And they don't fuck around. I mean, they know the text. They imbue the text with textures and meaning and subtext that you didn't even think of.
Also, it was like a really interesting cramp to throw to Pat, because in a film that heavy with narration, before any music is introduced to it, that already is an instrument. That is the prime instrument of the film, is the narrator's voice. And those voices are so different. Like James's voice is more like a bass clarinet or something, whereas Colm is more like a flute, maybe. And so in Patrick's challenge to score the film in two different languages, because we made two films, really, they're different. They're largely different by the fact that we have fundamentally different instruments in them, that being the voice.
I had a question for them, for you. For you. So I didn't see the movie until Annecy because, well, I mean, I saw the movie so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it.
Did you see the French one finally?
No, I haven't seen the French one.
It's good.
But you have it though.
Which one's better?
No, I don't. It's at the studio. I mean,
I sent you both links.
It's impossible to see.
Remember there
I
was
haven't seen
two?
the French one.
Oh, I didn't know
It's
that. I
good.
thought you sent it twice.
Oh, fun.
No,
Yeah.
one's the French one.
It's really good.
Because I thought it was finished. Anyways, so I hadn't seen the movie since January. I was waiting for the music, the special effects, everything to be done. And I wanted to see on a huge screen because it was supposed to be shown at the NFB, but they canceled it. So I was really excited to see it at the screen. And I noticed something. So the French version recording were made first, and then there was the English version that was made after. But they asked me to do the voice of the girl as a stand-in for like months. I can only hear my voice in the studio when they were editing. And I noticed the girl who did the voice, she did exactly my intonations. Like I could hear myself.
Oh.
You didn't notice that?
No, I didn't.
It felt like
notice
it was
that.
exactly the way I said it every time because I heard it 100 times.
No.
No?
I bet that did happen.
But it's possible that
Because
they
you had
heard
to
it.
learn-
She probably
Yeah.
heard it, so it's
She
not
had to
impossible.
learn it from my voice.
Yeah,
She learned it from your voice.
Okay.
Colm
cool.
Feore stole
So I
a
have
few of
a
my
little-
tricks, I noticed. So.
I have a little like my voice is in there somehow.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, that's. You should listen to the French. You have the French one.
Okay, I thought
It's
I was gonna
it's
wait.
virtually
for the...
done. The online hasn't been done, but it's virtually done.
Okay. So I will.
So, of course, The Girl Who Cried Pearls isn't your first film with the NFB. Do you feel part of the NFB's incredible animation heritage? Obviously stretches back decades and decades.
Well, I think our real introduction to the National Film Board of Canada, outside of the Log Driver's Waltz and what everyone else's experience was we had gotten the beginning of a contract for Madame Tootly-Pootly, and our producer Marcy Page came to our studio in Toronto, and she brought a film with her, When the Day Breaks, by Amanda Forbes and Wendy Tilby, and that film actually blew our minds.
Till now.
And I think it gave us a sense of what the NFB was in the time since we were kids. And the mastery of the form, the experimentation and the visuals, the cutting of the movie, where there were, 7-frame cuts that told an emotional story in 7 frames. I think that really, that was our, and if we feel we're any part of a continuum, I'd say people like Norman McLaren are amazing, but there's too much distance. For us, it's really Wendy and Amanda that we feel closest to in terms of our technique and our philosophy.
And you were talking about technology, about adopting technologies, being very open to technology, not being precious about that kind of thing. The NFB is also renowned for experimentation, right? In terms of technology, but in terms of technique as well. And in The Girl Who Cried Pearls, I think that you guys had to also, I know it's not a big percentage of the film, but you had to use some technology, right? If I'm not mistaken, with the mouth animation.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a bit?
But what's your question? I'm
Can
sorry.
you talk about that, about how the specific, because I think that the NFB was sort of pushing the boundaries a bit of what can be done with that specific technology. You know more about it than me, honestly, so I'm actually asking you
About the mouse.
About the mouse.
How did you make the mouse?
How'd you make the mouse, for God's sakes?
Yeah. That would be the short version.
But there's a fun story about the mouse that
Oh God, really? See, I thought no part of it was fun. But what was fun for you?
well, the beginning
Time
of
to hear this.
this is in pre-production. The whole movie was supposed to be made with moving mouth, and that was a big question mark on how it was going to cost, because we had just done Gymnasia, and there was a moving mouth, and it went really smoothly, and it was a very short movie. But this, I remember all the quotes and expert meeting, and it turned out that we couldn't afford it. So we had to turn around and see how it was going to be possible. And you guys, I don't know how it came up.
It was in New York when we were all there for Tribeca.
Oh, yeah. So it came up.
Gymnasia.
It came up to the storytelling. How can we incorporate this in the storytelling? And it was decided that the whole time of the movie was going to be without any moving mouth, and it was going to represent this old puppet that was like made out of wood. And then in the future, we can incorporate, and the puppets are different. They're made out of silicones, and the mouth made sense. And then it helped us to build this like budget around these two characters that are actually 13% of the movie.
Turned out 13% was almost too much as well.
Yeah.
In terms of expense and difficulty. But at the time, we thought this is brilliant. Only 13% or so with this mouth technique. It was important for us that the French version of the film and the English version of the film be completely sovereign. One wouldn't be a dub of the other, but they'd be intrinsically animated separately. To get into the process, it's maybe technical and kind of boring. Someone will maybe at some point, the people who helped us out will make one of those clever little montages of green screens to finish to, I don't know, 3D meshes. But and in the end, it ended up being a combination of Eric Pouliot and his team at the National Film Board, working with Dan Geiss at ED Films, who had been who we'd worked with for years, actually trying to literally developing this technique of puppets to digital to puppet. I don't know if it's a groundbreaking technique, but it's what we needed. I think
There was many techniques.
Yeah.
We started filming with UV lights
Yeah, oh, that's
That was another.
Well, they ended up using all those actually.
Yeah, so there was a interesting technique that was developed that, so we had to put dots on the puppet so we can track them, but it was like, how can we put dots on a puppet and not see it? So there was UV light dots. So every shot of the old man and the girl were shot in two separate ways where it would light up in UV, see the dots, and then shoot the real frame. And then this technique like developed into another technique. And at the end, it was, ED Film that helped us finish it.
It came together in the last month, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, and it was really like we were already in Annecy, and the process was in situ. Like,
But formalistically, the idea of the mouths not moving in the sequences from the past made sense to us because we kind of we dawned on the thought that you can remember conversations from the past. You can remember where you were. You can remember what time of day, what the atmosphere was like, what was said, but you don't actually ever remember the lips moving. I remember what my friend said to me 25 years ago, but I don't remember their lips moving. So that seemed okay.
But there was something also before we started the production. Julie Roy, that was our producer, asked us to do a test. And we did a test with the little boy. And the mouths were not moving, obviously, because we didn't have that. And we were surprised how the expression of the puppet, just by moving, expressed everything we wanted to say. So I think also that decision came from that test.
Yeah, well, it's true. Also, like, it's the experience of having kids. We, right at the same time, kind of, at least my daughter is maybe younger than your guys's, but you know, I had to do the the old pantomime of taking her little tutus and bear talks to donkey, hello little fox, whatever, and you realize that completely works. It works as well now as it did 100,000 years ago. It's our minds are capable of making that leap.
I mean, I think my favorite thing you've ever said out of all the conversations we've ever had, like we'll be at Annecy with like a 15,000 animators, and you're like, but you realize, guys, we're a bunch of adults who are playing with dolls.
We're old men who play with dolls.
I love when you tell me that. That's my favorite Maciek anecdote. But it's funny because like even in music, so like I feel like a lot of people think that like new techniques or groundbreaking techniques comes from like people trying to be really artistic, making artistic decisions. Once again, in music, almost every like step of the way, like the vinyl is 32 minutes because the bass sounds good. And everybody's like, well, the perfect record's 32 minutes. I'm like, well, yeah, because the bass sounds good. It's not some artistic decision. Another great one, Bing Crosby was the first one to own like tape reels. And the first person to do tape manipulation, before all the people in the 60s claimed it as their artistic expression, was he didn't want to tour, so he would put fake audience tapes to trick the live radio so he could stay with his family. And then you have like all these like people in the 60s being like, oh, I have this wicked idea. I'm like, well, dude, the biggest pop star in the world beat you all to it just so he didn't have to tour. And so I find it's like a lot of the artistic history is out of necessity and not out of like this groundbreaking idea. And I find that kind of funny about arts in general.
But I think creativity comes also from like less resource sometimes. Like you have to use your brain to find other ways to do things. So yeah, it is part of it.
It's like that's our recipe of success. Like isn't like Kids in the Hall, isn't Trailer Park Boys the best we do in that way because we have that limitation and you have to use your wits and intelligence to make up for it. Like isn't that what makes Canada great? In a lot of regards. No, but it's if I pick shows from Canada that like could change my life. If you take an example like Trailer Park Boys, because when you actually watch from the first episode, and you actually see the genius in how it's constructed, you realize that like that's the genius of Canada. You know, like the Americans could never make that show. It'd be impossible for them to do it. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's a great example of what we do best. You know?
Yeah, ingenuity. You have to use
The mother of invention.
Yeah, but it forces the wit. I mean, I would say that, in my opinion, CG has completely annihilated sci-fi as a genre that I care about. I feel like it killed the entire genre of it. You know, you go see a Hollywood film with CG and and they make all these like incredible looking things, but I just don't give a shit because then the script seems to suffer on such a great level to put the budget into seeing the things.
It's funny. In Annecy, I ran into some kids in a DEP, and we were introducing each other. And I said, "Oh, I was working on this movie." And their first question was, "It is CG, huh?" And I was like, "What?
Really?
Yeah."
The
I was
movie?
Like, yeah. I was like, "Whoa, this
Back
is like
to school.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Although at the same
Success.
time, like there's an extraordinary, actually I met a CG animator at Annecy who said, he was describing his film. He's like, I think I'm one of the only pure CG animators. So I mean, for real. So I think because 2D and stop motion has become, I mean, it's proliferated beyond our wildest dreams, to the point actually where a CG animator was saying, I think I'm the only person in competition who has a pure CG film. I don't even know what the
But
point
that comes
is.
back to, well, I think it wraps very well to the point of how this whole interview started. It's the story, you know, like even whether you can make something look exactly like this or that, you're not really selling the final product. You're selling, if someone sees a stop motion film, you're also selling the idea of these people spending years in making all puppet moves. It is a part of what you're watching, and your brain cannot like erase that element when you're watching it, you know, and
I think we had more people in NSC talking about I mean, they talked about the whole thing being beautiful or whatever, or they liked the look, or they liked the story. But I think there was a very nice lack of technique talk, right?
Yeah.
No one asked us shit
No
about
one asked us
technique,
anything.
and that's pretty unusual for us. And that was certainly, you know, in the case of Tuli Puli, it was half the questions are about the end and half were about technique. And there were nothing. This is the first film I think we put into the world which is just taken as a whole, which might mean we finally did it.
succeeded. Yeah, totally.
Awesome. I have some questions that are more kind of focused on you, Patrick, the soundtrack. So the film's atmosphere is really tangible, like the audio atmosphere. How do you go about creating a soundtrack that would harmonize the audio atmosphere and the visual atmosphere? Because both are so strong, right? I mean, you kind of talked about this already a bit, but I'm asking you that.
I think that the thing about stop motion is that you don't have room tone, and it's a big problem. So when we did Gymnasium, the most difficult thing was making the room tone, because in that film I was doing the sound as well as the music, and then on top of it was in surround because you were in VR. So generally, like I feel like with stop motion is that your music has to kind of like make up for that lack of that microphone in the room tone. So your sounds have to kind of reverberate against the set that they've made, and the way that they sit in it. It needs to. Kind of has to fit in that world, where film, when you have the room tone, they don't interact the same way. And then you're going to try to make some sounds that are like, you don't know if it's music and you don't know if it's sound. So the actual set makes noise. And obviously that's a big sound design work and stuff, but it's also in the music, you know, and how you set that up. So it's a bit of a collaborative effort in that way. But yeah, it's definitely I think stop motion is much more sensitive to sound than a normal film, you know, due to the lack of that, you know, like room tone we were talking about. So I take that very seriously.
Well, so do we. It's the most frightening thing for us.
Yeah,
man.
it's frightening. Yeah, it's terrible.
It's just frightening. we can work on something for 5 years, and then what you do with it
Yeah,
will
it ruins it.
determine
Yeah, it's awful.
its entire emotional reception,
Yeah, it's also
even what it means.
It's also a large responsibility. Like, you're gonna have people that had to work so hard on something that's so you know, for such a short piece. So it's a big responsibility to try to give what its due process is due when someone's worked so hard on something. So you do your best you can to honor that. But I definitely like the ambient aspect and the sound design for me is like, in terms of the way the instruments sit in the thing is always really important to me.
I think you did great.
Thank you, Ms. Amanda.
Well, you know what was different about this one? This is the first time we didn't make a direct effort to make you work against your instincts.
Well,
Because that's what we've usually done. Your music is so inherently romantic and
Yeah, so
beautiful. And I mean, well, we've been working together for what, like 15 years now.
Yeah.
And for the most part, we've always tried to subvert your instincts. We always try to make you do something that you wouldn't normally do on one of your records. And this was actually the first time when we needed exactly that.
Well, yeah, but on the flip side of this film, what's funny is that there's a large component of modular and electronic components to make this world work, and that's a bit to the way I attacked the Pearl was definitely from synths. Almost all the entirety of the Pearl scenes and the Pearl sounds are all synths, like 1,000% electronic, and I thought that was also fun to counterbalance the romantic, or just like because it's an older looking kind of stop motion. I thought it was important to have a blend of some of those kind of more modern tones that even if it's hidden inside the soundtrack, but like even when the Pearl falls, that's a synth. Like it's almost all modular, and almost every layer had been put through modular to give it this outer worldly feeling inside of it.
So, yeah, so it's kind of counterintuitive. You would almost like expect to have oldie worldy type music, right? With this feeling of the past.
Yeah.
You brought it to now, and I guess that creates some sort of artistic tension.
My favorite sound in the film for me, like in me, there's this one part where the train goes by the windows, and there's this really kind of, it's very subtle, but this like I had put all the strings and stuff through this thing called cycles that makes this kind of beautiful, almost like a brushstroke of sound that goes across, and it's still my favorite sound in the entire soundtrack. But it's the way it interacts with that old world, and I like the mix of those kind of tools.
Didn't even tell us about it, just in case we'd get rid of it.
Yeah, I know. It's
the
really
first I've
hidden
heard of
there,
it.
Yeah, it's my favorite sound of the film, and I think they actually muted it, and then I unmuted it and turned it up.
And I assume that your creative process for working on a film like this is extremely different from your own music. Like, how do you just put yourself in a completely different mindset? Like, are there any crossovers at all?
I mean, I just try to help them achieve the film that they're trying to make, and if there's something missing, I try to help it. You're in a support role, you know what I mean? You're not really in a lead role, and I picture the film as like the singer, and I'm the bass player. You know what I mean? In that way. But it's a daunting task because, like you said, it's stop motion is incredibly sensitive to a reality shift when you put music, so it's entirely stressful. You put a note and the entire thing shifts, so you do a lot of tests and stuff like that to try to find the right thing. But it's incredibly stressful to when you do music or stop motion. It's so sensitive to sound, you know. So I just do the best I can, you know what I mean, the best I can without you.
You sound like a hockey player.
Yeah.
No, but it is a little bit. I throw pucks at the net. I'm not gonna lie. Like in my project's the same thing. Like I throw a lot of pucks at the net. I mean, I know it's stupid, but we do, and I think just in the way they do it as well. And I run a lot of tests, and also if I work with them, it's a labor of love. It's not a labor. It's not a job. It's, you know, nor to anything do I do, but especially this kind of thing where it's a labor of love, where it's a 20-minute film. It can't go into the only reason is to try to make an object that is incredibly like magical. That's like that could be the only intention. You're not going to make money from this, or so it really is just like you just want to make something that blows your mind. You know, that's the only intention you could possibly have. That makes sense. You know.
Blowing minds is a great intention.
But I think that's what our goal. Like whenever I talk with these people, and I think the only thing we ever really think about is how can we blow people's minds. Do you know what I mean? That's the only thing that ever really comes up in conversation. You know, there's no other intention. Like there just simply isn't. And then that doesn't mean that. I think it's important for artists to hear is it doesn't mean that you don't be business conscious after that. You do your art in that 1,000% pure intention, and but that doesn't mean that when it comes to like going to pay your rent after that you don't be smart about the other stuff that you can control around it. And I think it's important for people to understand that, you know, there's a difference, and you don't need to sacrifice your art to be smart at the other things at the same time. You just don't want the other one to fuck it up. But there's a way of doing both really responsibly and paying your rent.
Great advice.
No, it's true though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, so look, unless you guys have other things that you want to say, we can move on.
No, let's move along. Let's move to the end game.
This has been amazing. So
Now this is the last dance portion of the.
Yeah, you can hear a cigar.
I was gonna say, yeah, you're gonna show us Scottie Pippen and.
So I'm gonna ask a question specifically, and then we'll roll it, and then you're
Okay.
answering as you're seeing, and you might be like, oh yeah, this bit,
Oh, like a DVD commentary.
pretty much. So the question is, this scene features a lot of movement and various camera angles. How did you plan and execute the dynamic visuals? That's your question. That's your kickoff question for commenting on this scene.
It was not the largest he'd seen, but the color, the luster, the luminescence. Where did you steal it, you little rat? He asked me. I didn't steal it, I said. I told him the whole story. He didn't believe a word of it. I pulled out the second pearl. I'm not lying, I said. I could see the wheels turning. A matching pair. Very, very rare. Are you going to buy them or not? I asked. Easy now. Silence! I need to get these checked. What does that mean? Means get out. Come back tomorrow. Or maybe you'd prefer we went to the cops with your little fairy tale. Out!
I mean, when I see it, I see the animatic.
You've talked about the animatic, but I guess you can't assume that everybody's going to know what that means, right?
Yeah.
So this is your opportunity to kind of actually explain how it's done.
Well, I think we've discussed it earlier. We get actors. We make primitive sets. We have the actors improvise and block out the scenes with us. Then Maciek, Brigitte, and I will shoot it. Once we've blocked it, we'll shoot it not that many times, 5 or 6, 7 times. We didn't do like 50 takes. Once because we're shooting so much coverage with all the cameras, and then we edit it together, and then the process of making the actual shots is to even analyze the camera movements. So if a camera move has a little move to the right, sometimes it doesn't even make any sense. There's one camera move there that's just completely unmotivated, and it's because we decided to keep the animatic
The
move.
energy of it.
And because it just trusts the energy that process gives you.
And also the sets, like you see the front, but when we filmed that was maybe 3 months after filming the inside. We have to start with the inside, and then there's all this like, oh, we have to shoot the front and the back and the side, and then the set becomes full of holes and kind of falling apart, and then we have to rebuild the front to do the exterior. And the train was filmed separate. No, it was filmed together. Wasn't it a separate part?
It's
Yeah,
separate.
it was a separate part.
Yeah. It's all elements.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning is, on behalf of talking about the animatic, that not only is it the most fun we can have before settling down for years of truly pedantic work, it's also what we do instead of ever drawing storyboards. Our contemporaries always wonder why we don't use storyboards, and for us, it's just because this is so much more fun. This is so much more approximate to a live theater experience, to be there in the space with actors, to hold the cameras in our hands, which is essentially what a kind of director is. It's a person holding a camera in front of an actor, and just letting the moment inform us as to what to do. Do we come in a little bit closer? Am I missing some action? Do I want to step to the left to get it? And a lot of stuff happens when we review the footage. There's a live energy to that, which you would never have intentionally plotted into a storyboard. Also, a storyboard, like for us, the idea of working with storyboards or making storyboards. I mean, sure, we do some little sketches here and there. But what a storyboard essentially is they're rectangular panels that you read from left to right, up to down, flip the page. This is not a cinematic experience. This is a comic book. It's actually kind of a betrayal of the form and an unnecessary loss of momentum. This gives us an instant sensation of what the film is, and we can actually cut these things together and say we're making a 17-minute film here. We originally cut a 17-minute long edit and then more or less animated it And whenever we had a new scene, we would replace the live animatic shot with the puppet shot until it was completely finished. But we knew exactly where we were going. We knew how long things have to last. We knew if things were too long. We didn't have to unnecessarily animate little pads on the beginning, because sometimes you would, if you don't have that, then you got to give yourself an extra second at the beginning and an extra second or two at the end, just for the sake of just to be prudent in your final edit. But this way, we actually don't have to do that, because we know exactly where the shot ends and begins, and thus probably save ourselves a year of making animation that never makes it onto the screen.
To add something also is that at the beginning, we knew that the NFB had a Volo camera controller. And I think in every other movies, there were camera moves, but they were very simple. And this was a chance to like use this machine that's very hard to get and very expensive. And we did think of it when we were doing the animatic, we could do camera moves.
Sure, it's our first. It is our first film with motion control.
Yeah, motion control, that we could like
believe.
use it, and it really shows in the movie how like this tool really helped us tell the story.
And it's, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but like it's shot multi-cam, right? You're animating but shooting from
No.
Okay.
God, no.
Same camera.
But I would
Okay.
say, you know what's
That's
kind of fascinating? No,
that's an
they're
insane
they're months
amount of work.
apart. They're months apart.
Yeah,
No,
we
they're
had-
actually months apart.
We had to
I couldn't
build.
imagine that you actually do that.
No,
All
that
right,
would
good.
be
insane.
spectacularly insane.
I-
Insane.
To me, the other thing seems insane. It's like you do it all over again, all these minute movements.
I had to design
Yeah,
the set.
that's equally insane.
I had to design the set in the order that we were gonna. Like, I had to make an order of every shot for light, because sometimes it's in the day, sometimes it's at the night. The angles. So I had to make like, oh, this door has to open at one point because we're gonna shoot this way. So the order of filming was all planned out for not having a set full of holes at the end when we have to do a large shot. So it was like large and then small and then with light and then front and back. Yeah.
You know what might be fascinating about this, just to discuss a little mise en scène, is we did some interesting things there with if you look at the angles that we chose, it was largely based on at the first time the boy and the pawnbroker meet, we had Stéphane Demers on a small apple box.
So that the differential was different between, so that he was looking down at him more. That made the boy seem more intimidated. But there is a power dynamic change towards the end of the movie.
At each six, so if you notice, the shots we ended up choosing here tend to be low from the boy. It has to be, because our animatic, Stéphane was on a box, and then when we're looking down at the boy, so that really the pawnbroker's looming over him. And then as we shot the animatic, and it's in the animation as well, Demers got off of his box, and with each time the boy comes to the place, he's on an extra apple box. So their height actually is very subtly getting closer to each other, so that they never. And so by the end, in fact, the pawnbroker is hunched over, and the boy is on his apple box. So they're almost equal, and the boy's almost the same.
To show the confidence of the boy getting.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and it's completely probably subconscious. You probably never noticed, but that decision to do it with apple boxes was done at the animatic stage, because of course it would inform the angles that we chose.
And the puppets were also like that. When we animated them, we had to like change, and continuity had to be like, oh, don't forget, even
He's
if
this
it's not
height,
short it's not shot in order, but don't forget the heights.
I mean, the other thing that when we were talking about sound design is like the door closes and a lot of steps is all the harmonics of the piano. And Olivier did a wonderful job on the sound, but every time I work with him, I kind of think if it's going to be a fake set, I think there should be tones inside the sound environment that are also surreal, where Olivier would be the more realistic sound, and my job is to add accentuation. So with the last door slam is still all the harmonics of the piano open. So give you feeling that the set is not real as well, and as well as it being real. So it's a good scene for that as well. Very inspired by Carl Stalling, and the way that he approaches his sound design and his orchestrations. Just the original Walt Disney guy and Warner Brother guy.
There is that vibe with the doodle tunk. Yeah, it's
Olivier's not a fan of it because he's like he probably comes from a different school. For me, I find it. I don't know.
cut to Olivier's defense.
No. I mean, only because he did such an excellent job. I mean, in that, you know.
Yeah.
For me, like, I'm like, we are in this world. Like, I like the fact that the sound is a tiny bit surreal. Like when he puts his hand through the light and everything feels a bit surreal, like what you're looking at. I'm a fan of that. Like when we did Cauchemar and we did the sound, like the sound's all crazy. I like doing all that. I actually like doing sound design with the instruments for this kind of films because it's fun. Looks crazy.
All right. I think
Scene
we can
2.
Cue up the second one. Girl opens box of chocolates, and the boys react.
Oh well, this is a tour de force of the kid who
Actor.
played
The actress.
his emotive thing, which was sometimes a little over the top, works so beautifully in this puppet. This is also a great example of the animatic and also the conversation between an animator and the anything that was, let's say, anything missing in his performance, the animators just turned this into beautiful puppetry.
But even the girl,
I wish I had.
I
that.
remember
I wish I had
the
that
crying
poster.
scenes. She actually cried,
She actually cried.
and
yeah.
she was like 10, and she was crying, bawling on her first shot. So it
Andrea.
shows in this puppet. The
She did a great
emotion.
job in this scene too, actually.
Yes.
All the smelling the chocolates. For lighting, this is, I think, my favorite shot.
The actress actually was wearing shoes with. She brought we didn't ask her. She brought the biggest shoes she could find and put paper in it so she could walk in a weird way. And that was her idea.
It was the first time I'd seen her smile. Maybe the first time she ever had.
That's the Tarantino suitcase trick, by the way, obviously.
That night, she did not cry. And there were no pearls.
What can we tell? What can we say?
I mean,
I
that's
think it could be interesting to see when you do the cut, I guess, with the animatic, to have the actor beside the actual puppet and see that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's almost the melodrama of him touching his heart is really almost too much.
And he looks cheesy in real time, like an actor, but it translated so well in a puppet.
It also shows you when you're doing a romantic puppet movie, there's too far is never too far. I don't think you can go too far. Like,
That's true.
because in the animatic, definitely, I think we're like, we're pushing the limits here of schmaltz.
I remember the actor, you were like, not sure. You were like, he's too much. He's too much.
Sure, with
But
the
it
with the
translates-
possibility that he's listening to this, he did great.
No. But I mean, as an actor,
Yeah.
it revealed itself to be the best acting possible for this movie.
Yeah.
For a
And it
puppet,
was-
for
puppet.
an amazing animator, I think and for a puppet, and for ultimately for the story we were telling, it's fine, and it's even if we weren't telling it.
But we did choose him as an actor. Like we had many actors, and we did choose him, and we liked him. But he revealed himself to be like a silent movie actor.
Absolutely.
And at first, it was like, "Is that what we want? Is that what we want?" And it
Yeah.
revealed it to be perfect.
He had a jittery quality to him that we were very uncertain of while we were shooting. That turned out to be and a complete contrast to Stefan Demers, who had absolute body control. The kid who played the boy was kind of jittery and nervous.
What
and
happened once? It was like he had a broom or something, and he was like he
Well, he-
almost like hit.
he literally did hit her by accident. Yeah, he got a little too into it. But his jitteriness is my favorite thing about the movie. There's such unusual. We talk about like gestures are the currency of an animator, and the ones you wouldn't expect are the gold. His jitteriness was kind of magical. It's my favorite part of the movie in some ways, especially the contrast and scenes between the pawnbroker and the boy. When the boy is all, I mean, he just is steppy and the two, it's really interesting. And again, when that contrast happens at the end of the movie, when the movie, you know, when there's a twist and he turns it, as he gains confidence, he loses the jitters. So it actually, yeah.
And it was filmed in order.
Yeah, we did film it in order, didn't we? Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess he did get a little better as he went along.
Yeah.
And Andrea was a revelation. I mean, she did cry. She'd literally cry.
On the call, like we did it a few times, that shot when she cries and she
We didn't
cried.
ask her to. My God, we're not those kind of directors. Like,
And she just cried every time. It was like so emotional.
Didn't cry pearls though. Just cried regularly.
Oh, maybe.
she's not.
We didn't collect
Yes,
them.
no, she literally cried, bro.
I,
She's that good.
I give a shout out. Could I give a shout out to the violin player who plays on the scene? Just because it's a really nice moment. Just
Sure, go
only because he did such a good job on the scene. So these themes that are kind of romantic like this, either they feel very manipulative. It's really easy for me tacky and shitty. So I asked my friend Robert. Robert's just like, he's just this really humble dude who can kind of play everything on a violin, but he has like no ego, even though he's better than most people at the violin, but zero ego. And it's like when I had the scene, it's the only person I could ask to make something that was cheesy without it being manipulative. So a big shout out to Robert for that violin.
you did amazing. Thank you. This was honestly above and beyond. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, John.
I'll win an Oscar.
Thanks, guys.